It was a sombre start to the parliamentary sitting.
The men and women in the Defence Force have worn the uniform. They've done everything we've asked of them. Many of them have gone into harm's way, and we owe it to them to do the right thing.
The Royal Commissioners, who have spent the last 3 years listening to harrowing stories of suicide and institutional incompetence and neglect of our Defence Forces, delivered their final report to the Governor-General and the Parliament. Veterans and their loved ones now await a response from the Government to the Commission's 122 recommendations, but they will be waiting amid competing pressures to get legislation through Parliament and to shift the political debate as an election draws nearer.
Can the Treasurer confirm that Australia has been in a household recession for the past 6 quarters?
Every pet shop galah, pollster and politician will tell you that the only issues on voters' minds are the economy, cost of living and interest rates. But until today, the Coalition seems to have been avoiding questioning the government about them. Perhaps you can see why when you listen to the Treasurer's answer.
He is there after all. What a relief for all of us that he is. Mr Speaker, as I said when the national accounts came out last Wednesday, the Australian economy barely grew in the June quarter. If we had taken the free advice of those opposite, if we had taken their advice, the economy would be in recession right now.
If you attack the government on the economy, you are going to get attacked back. The economy has slowed under the weight of high interest rates. That is, after all, what high interest rates are supposed to do. The Treasurer was criticised last week for saying interest rates were smashing the economy because he was seen to be attacking the Reserve Bank. The RBA's main job is to get inflation down. Does that mean the RBA and the government are at war?
He's doing his job and I'm doing mine. I wouldn't use those sorts of words.
The government's different job is to help households where it can without adding too much to inflationary pressures. It also wants to remove some of those pressures, for example, those caused by labour shortages and supply chain disruptions. The government also has a political task to sell its cost of living relief, but particularly to turn the spotlight on the Coalition.
And if they truly cared, Mr Speaker, if they truly cared about household incomes in this country, they wouldn't have called for an election over our tax cuts for every taxpayer. If they really cared about household incomes, they wouldn't be against our cost of living relief.
So the Coalition has finally broken cover on the economy. The battle now begins in earnest, but much of this parliamentary sitting will be consumed by negotiations over legislation. The government wants a final opposition sign-off on aged care reforms, due to go to the Coalition party room tomorrow morning, and it wants to break the Senate deadlock over proposed housing market initiatives. While the policy battle goes on, there are also the continuing culture wars and the fear of them.
Politicians from the left and from the right have deliberately fomented dissent and anger at a time when we need reason and respect.
After a fierce backlash, the government announced yesterday it is now instructing the Bureau of Statistics to proceed with questions in the 2026 census on sexual orientation and gender, though not on sex characteristics, which was proving a much more fraught issue.
The ABS came to the government with potential changes it planned to trial. We paused that process to get it right.
Political minds are increasingly turning to the next federal election. Polling by the Redbridge Group over the weekend points to the likelihood of a Labor minority government and the possible loss of 2 Teal seats, Goldstein and Curtin, to the Coalition. The spectre of minority government had Press Gallery veteran Nikki Sava reflecting today on the transformation of our politics in the annual Speaker's Lecture at Parliament House.
Everyone refers to the drift away from major parties, implying it is whimsical or unthinking or transitory, or a phase that voters will grow out of. It isn't. It should be described as the Great Desertion. The existential threats faced by the major parties are real, not a passing phenomenon that will exhaust itself. There are profound implications for them and the way we are governed.
Sava argues that not all rules, such as those on party solidarity, crafted a century ago, work today. Australians need to know their MPs have a pulse, a ticker and a conscience, she says. The Parliament seems to be hearing a lot of early valedictory speeches of late, and departing MPs also have thoughts about how the place could be improved.
I look at this side of the House and I look at the female representation that we have here. and I am absolutely convinced that we need to do better. What I have seen over the last decade at least has made me soften my views into opposing quotas.
Former Coalition Minister Karen Andrews is leaving Parliament at the next election, and a few days after Labor celebrated the adoption of affirmative action quotas 30 years ago, an idea the Coalition has always staunchly opposed, she is now having second thoughts.
If we want to make change here, we cannot simply cross our fingers and hope that things are going to change unless we take positive action, because doing that in the past has been an abject failure.
And neither the government nor opposition can simply cross their fingers on where the economy goes next either.